White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre shut down a reporter's question to Dr. Anthony Fauci on the origin of COVID-19 yesterday. Let's watch.
I will not call on you if you yell, and also you're taking time off the clock because Dr. Fauci has to leave in a couple of minutes. I'm done. I'm not getting into a back and forth with you. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Dr. Fauci,
but she's
only
asking 30 great questions.
You're not being me. Go ahead, Jeremy.
You ask your question, you should allow her to answer the question.
Jeremy.
She asked a valid
Jeremy.
question, Dr. Fauci, on the origin of COVID-19.
It is not your turn.
No,
It is not your turn.
You can't answer the same people. That's the thing. You can't read a press briefing. You need to call from people across the room. She has a valid question. She's asking about the origin of COVID-19.
I hear the question.
And Dr. Fauci is the best person to answer.
I hear your question, but we're not doing this the way you want it. This is the disrespectful. It is.
That exchange took place when Dr. Fauci addressed the White House press corps, giving his final message after 50 years of public service.
My message, and my final message, maybe the final message I give you from this podium, is that please, for your own safety, for that of your family, get your updated COVID-19 shot as soon as you're eligible to protect yourself, your family, and your community. I urge you to visit vaccines.gov to find a location where you can easily get an updated vaccine. And please do it as soon as possible. Thank you.
During that same appearance, Fauci promised to cooperate with any possible House Republican investigations into the origins of COVID-19.
Aggressive oversight from House Republicans, the new majority next year that they've been promising on some of these.
Hold on one second. Dr. Jha is going to stay to take a couple more questions, but Dr. Fauci actually has to go. Yeah. So thank you so much, Dr. Fauci.
Thank you. Yeah, I can answer his
You want to answer it?
Yeah.
Okay. He says I'll answer it. Okay,
I'm a good,
go ahead. I'm just trying to keep him on time.
The answer is, if there are oversight hearings, I absolutely will cooperate fully and testify before the Congress if asked. You may not know, but I've testified before the Congress a few hundred times, okay, over the last 40 years or so. So I have no trouble testifying. We can defend and explain and stand by everything that we've said. So I have nothing to hide.
So that's the last.
It's kind of incredible.
Go ahead.
Yeah. How much more credible he seems just answering the questions as opposed to the deflections that Karine Jean-Pierre tends to deflect to, tends to jump to immediately. Just saying, hey, of course I'm willing to talk. Of course I'm willing to engage. I'm willing to stand here and answer my question. I'm not going to be rushed off the stage. You can see whatever you think about Dr. Fauci, his years of experience really coming into play there, making him seem like a lot more credible interlocutor than Karine Jean-Pierre.
Yeah, and he doesn't shy away from the spotlight. He likes answering questions. I think he actually enjoys the fray a little bit. You know, he's gotten into it with Rand Paul and some other people. So I'm sure he will answer questions if asked. And those questions should be asked because we have a lot of them, with respect to the origins of the pandemic, some of the mitigation efforts, some of the guidance he gave, but, particularly the origins as we're going on as House Republicans have new powers to launch investigations to look at these matters. I really do think much more than Hunter Biden or anything going on with that. I hope they really do seriously probe what we know about how COVID arose and what our funding of this kind of research that Dr. Fauci has been the foremost public advocate of funding, what that has gotten us, what are the benefits of that, and what are the potential drawbacks, and does it have anything to do with COVID, or could it in the future have something to do with the emergence of a new disease? Those are very important questions. They're not partisan questions at all. Republicans want to hold Fauci accountable, so they're interested in asking them, but plenty of people of all sorts, all areas, all corners of the political spectrum have an interest and concern about that. So let's hopefully get those questions answered. Now, according to
good point.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's a good point about it being bipartisan. I've been thinking about how Jeffrey Sachs, who, is on the left, was a surrogate for the Bernie Sanders campaign, and who is one of the most kind of senior people who are in a position to be investigating the origins of COVID-19. He's on medical journal, science journal Lancet's investigation team, heads that team. And he has been rocking boats all over the place with his willingness to really press on these more difficult questions from a position of being very much an insider historically in this field. So, yeah.
Well, according to a new report from the Department of Health and Human Services, masking and social distancing should be encouraged or even mandated to protect people from COVID-19 and from the possibility of suffering from long COVID.
The White House is also launching a 6-week booster push aimed to encourage Americans to get their COVID boosters as we head into the holiday season. According to a fact sheet shared first with CNN, the 6-week campaign will focus on reaching seniors in the communities that were hit hardest by the COVID-19 pandemic by making it more convenient to get vaccinated and increasing awareness through paid media. Look, I don't have a problem with this, Robby, and I wonder, my position has always been that making vaccines available, making it easier for people to make that choice, if that's a choice that they want to make, is preferable to jumping immediately to a mandate paradigm where people are going to feel distrustful and feel coerced. And I always wondered why, if you want students to get vaccinated, you don't just set up stations in front of schools at the start of the school year. Why they're not doing more things like that, why they stopped sending tests out to families. What do you make of this?
Yeah, well, I agree with that. Schools are some of the only places, I think, now where there really are still mandates. I've talked to college students at places like Harvard and Yale that they had a requirement to get the bivalent booster, which I think makes just like absolutely no sense. You're talking about a population that is not particularly at risk as a population for COVID, who were required to get vaccinated already. Now you're requiring this shot, which does, I have to say, I got it. It does knock you out if you get it at the same time. Not everyone, but some people, if you get it at the same time as the flu shot, it does really knock you out. Other health authorities are questioning whether it should even be recognized for, or required or recommended for this group of people. So I think that approach makes no sense. But sure, fine, we can do lots of outreach to people who would likely be much better served by getting it, older Americans, immunocompromised Americans. It's hard for me to imagine people at this stage of where things are not being aware of what their options are, but maybe it is the case. Maybe there are people out there who would like to get it, but don't know specifically how they would do that. So some kind of awareness campaign is useful. If that's the case, absolutely fine.
Yeah.
If you want to encourage people to, take precautions, when they travel or, wash their hands, et cetera. You want to ask people to wear masks, fine. No more. I don't want any more, requirements on this front. But, the benefit of one-way masking has now been recognized by health authorities. So if people want extra caution, they can wear their own, very high-quality mask and proceed with the knowledge that gives you a very good, according to the science, a very, very strong level of additional protection. If that's something you're interested in, it's not something you have to force on anyone else. And as long as we have an agreement that that's how we're going to proceed, then let's just proceed.
Yeah, it's not awareness, though. I think the idea of making it more convenient for people to get boosted. I was talking to a friend of mine who has a 2-year-old and who just gave birth, and she was talking about how frustrating it was, how difficult the idea of even getting her toddler vaccinated is, because you have to not only take the kid out of daycare, you have to take a day off of work, make a doctor's appointment, and basically lose a day to those kinds of things. And, she's a more privileged person who has the ability to take that kind of time off work. Other people having to take their kid out of school to make a doctor's appointment and take time off work. Look, that's a barrier enough for folks to not go ahead and do something. And it takes it out of the realm of choice, like a real, do I want this or do I not want this choice, into a, is it worth the lift kind of a choice. And so if the government wants people to have a lower threshold to go ahead and get some of these interventions that exist, I think that they absolutely would see higher vaccination rates and higher booster rates if they simply had at schools, at workplaces, at places that people regularly convene as part of their daily schedule, opportunities to get boosted, churches, et cetera.
I mean, they have them I got it through CVS. They have one of those at on every corner virtually. You make an appointment, you get it. I understand it's difficult. It can be more challenging for people who work or for people who have kids, but I don't know, it doesn't seem that hard to me. I'm sure they can make it a little bit easier, et cetera, but I don't know. Well, it does appear the era of vaccines at warp speed is over. According to reporting by the New York Times, President Biden has asked the lame duck session for $5 billion for next-generation vaccines and therapeutics as part of a broader $9.25 billion pandemic spending request. But Republicans have continued to block requests, citing complaints about how the White House previously spent pandemic aid. We're also learning about a major roadblock to the development of a COVID nasal vaccine booster. Scientists have been barred from using leftover Pfizer or Moderna doses in their studies, even though millions of unused doses have been thrown away. According to the Times, purchase agreements prevent doses of vaccines from being used for research, forcing scientists to pay outside manufacturers to make imitations. I read this New York Times story. It was pretty infuriating. It sounded like both some corporate failures and some regulatory bureaucratic failures, like on both sides, to make both of us, Briahna, to make both of us angry.
What are the regulatory failures? Because it sounds like corporate pharmaceutical companies protecting their own profit bottom line, not wanting their not wanting to give anything out for free.
But they're already. I mean, they already have extra doses of this, and they can't be like this since they were not designated for research purposes. They can't be used for that in the agreement that the government and the corporation made, and it's it's on both ends looks very foolish. But like they're developing some of these therapeutics potentially here, and then they're not going to be able to use them here because they were. The research was done using vaccines that were not designated for this purpose, so you can't approve it based on that. So it seems very short-sighted and very bad to not have all that waived.
This very much like typical behavior from a pharmaceutical company, typical behavior from a corporation that would put limitations on the use of its product into an agreement in order to protect its IP and its own potential profitability down the line. That seems like an open and shut case. This is what lawyers do, and this is why it's such a shame that so many parts of, I won't say the left, but liberals have really abandoned any critique of how the pharmaceutical companies have made this crisis worse than it needed to be, unwilling to share its IP with the global South. People in other parts of the world not anticipated to be able to have access to vaccines until next year or the year after. It's really egregious stuff, and there's really no defense for it.
Yeah. Tomorrow on Rising, Teslin Figaro joins us to discuss 2024 and how old is too old to serve as president. We're likely to find out soon. Plus, executive editor at The American Prospect, David Dane, will join us to weigh in on the student debt relief legal questions. Now, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. And we want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Thanks for watching, and we will see you soon.
Happy Thanksgiving. Bye-bye.